all eyes are on San Francisco this week. So first, what do you expect from the upcoming Xi-Biden meeting?
We hope that there will be an easing of tensions. The United States government got into its head roughly a decade ago that China somehow was an enemy and needed to be contained. This was a terrible idea, a mistaken idea, but it has really animated U.S. policy for a decade, and it needs to be changed. And so we're hoping that this is the start of something productive and cooperative.
You have repeatedly criticized the China threat rhetoric as a dreadful mistake. Can you explain more on this viewpoint?
The U.S. Game plan, as they stated, or grand strategy, is to be the preeminent power in all parts of the world. So the U.S. wants military, technological, economic, financial supremacy. But this is not possible. But all of this means that starting around 10 years ago, the U.S. policy idea was to contain China in a number of ways, to contain China militarily by building up the U.S. military power around China, to contain China technologically by putting increasing barriers, so the U.S. thinks, to China's technological advance, to contain China in trade through unilateral trade measures, and so on. And this has worsened the relations, as have really irresponsible actions vis-a-vis Taiwan, notably high-profile visits by the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and the decision to provide weapons out of presidential authority to Taiwan. So when you put all these pieces together, this has been source of growing conflict and tension, and to my mind, very destructive and very dangerous and very misguided. I don't view the world that way, as a zero-sum game, but this is how some of our leaders think.
And in the meantime, the Biden administration has urged its allies to do the same, of de-risking from China. What harm will it do to the world's economic growth and stability?
You know, the other countries are scratching their heads trying to figure out what to do. A good example is Australia, which knows, it's part of the Asia Pacific. It can't just follow the U.S. lead. So on the one hand, they're buying submarines from the United States. On the other hand, the Australian Prime Minister is going to China to say, we want good relations, we want trade, we want active relations. The same is true in Europe. Recent years on foreign policy, it just feels that it has to follow the U.S. On the other hand, European-Chinese trade is vital for European well-being. Europe's economy is deeply intertwined with China's, to the good for both sides. So Europe is also conflicted.
So for us, there has been a deep reflection on globalization recently. Globalization, deglobalization, or re-globalization. Where are we now? Where are we heading towards?
Well, I would say that we want globalization to continue because a large interconnected world is good for all parts of the world. It raises innovation, it raises specialization, it enables higher living standards. So we want to keep the world system open. We want a system that truly is rules-based, not in the way the U.S. says, which is we write the rules, but in the way that we have multilateral rules, for example, at the World Trade Organization. Globalization is being part of a world system, and you don't have to be, quote, number one. You need to be a beneficiary of an interconnected world. The U.S. is definitely turning more protectionist. I would hope that Europe doesn't follow the United States down this blind path. That would be a big cost for Europe. And I think it would hurt a lot because Europe's a big part of the world economy. So I'm hoping that Europe gains some perspective and sense. Europe doesn't aim for hegemony like the United States does.
You emphasize that the world's two largest economies, China and the United States, should work together to promote global cooperation for sustainable development. So first, what are the leading issues here that you'd like to see China and the U.S. work together?
First of all, I don't see any fundamental clash between the two countries. I just view it as China is having a lot of economic success, which I think is wonderful for China and good for the world. And this is not a threat to the United States. Now, clearly, we have global challenges that are very significant. And the most important of these, other than war and peace, is the environment. We have a climate crisis. This is not a secret. The two countries should be working together on that. China's in a very good position to help lead the solutions because China is the world's low-cost provider of photovoltaics, wind turbines, long distance, high voltage, direct current transmission of power, building very large hydroelectric dams, which Africa needs, for example, on the Congo Basin, uh, fast intercity rail. Whoa, all of these are great. So it seems to me that the US and China should be saying, let's work together to build out this infrastructure all over the world to accelerate the transformation to a zero carbon digital world economy that makes this climate crisis less dangerous than it otherwise will be. This is the kind of cooperation that we should have. We should have cooperation on helping Africa to finally end its long-standing poverty. Just as China completely eliminated poverty after 1980, the Paris Agreement is a diplomatic area where the two countries should be cooperating. Of course, reducing the arms race, the nuclear weapons race, the tensions, there's so many things to cooperate on. It just means that the United States should back off a very misguided policy and open cooperation, and then work with the Chinese counterparts on innovations and initiatives that can really benefit both countries and benefit the rest of the world.